Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into something really fascinating in storytelling, the fourth wall.
Ah, yes, that invisible barrier.
Exactly, that imaginary line separating performers from the audience. We can see through it, obviously, but the whole idea, the convention, is that the characters act like they can't see us.
Right. They're in their own world.
So our mission today is to unpack all of that. Its history, how it evolved, and how it's used in so many different ways across different media, and how that actually shapes how you experience stories.
And I think as we get into it, you'll have some real aha moments. It's a great way to understand why certain things work in stories, why they hit you a certain way, how creators kind of play with what feels real.
Okay, let's unpack it then. The fourth wall. What is it really at its core? Where did this idea even come from?
Well, simply put, it's that performance convention, that invisible wall separating the fictional world from you, the audience.
Okay.
But its roots, they really solidified with the whole rise of illusionism in staging. That started way back, maybe 16th century, but really hit its stride with 19th century theater. Realism, naturalism.
Before that, it was different.
Oh, yeah, much more direct address. Think Shakespeare. Talking right to the audience wasn't weird. It was normal. This idea of a totally sealed-off world came later.
And the name itself, fourth wall, it's so visual, isn't it? Like a box set on stage.
Exactly. Picture a room on stage with 3 walls.
Okay.
The missing 4th wall is where you, the audience, are sitting. And this is key, it's not really about the physical set.
Ah, right. It's a convention.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It dictates how the actors behave. They ignore you, stay in character, live in that fictional space.
Although sometimes actors do react subtly, don't they? Like pausing for laughter.
For sure. They might adjust timing, hold for a laugh, so they're aware on some level, but without directly acknowledging you. It's subtle.
Which ties into Stanislavski, right?
Absolutely. Konstantin Stanislavski's idea of public solitude.
Public solitude. Acting like you're alone, but when everyone's watching.
That's it, exactly. Being alone in public, the ability to behave privately, intimately, even under intense scrutiny. And that applies no matter the set or how close you are.
Okay, so that's the wall. But then things get really interesting when people decide to break it.
That's where the fun starts.
So breaking the fourth wall, what does that mean?
It's any time that convention is deliberately violated, an actor suddenly talks directly to you, the audience.
Or acknowledges they're in a play or a movie.
Yep, or references themselves as a character. Anything that punctures that illusion of a self-contained world.
And doing that really draws attention to the wall itself, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you aware of the artifice. That's why it's often called metatheater or metafiction, art commenting on itself.
And in film or TV, that usually means looking at the camera.
That's the classic move, making eye contact right down the lens.
Yeah.
It shatters that feeling that you're just observing unnoticed.
So this became a big thing in the 19th century. But when did people start actually talking about it using the term fourth wall? Because accepting that wall is so key to, suspending disbelief.
Right, letting yourself get lost in the story. Well, the underlying concept, many people trace it back to Denis Diderot, the philosopher.
Diderot. When is that?
Way back in 1758. He wrote that actors should basically imagine a huge wall across the front of the stage and behave exactly as if the curtain had never risen.
Wow. Okay. So he got the idea down, even without the name.
Pretty much. He articulated the principle.
And the actual phrase, the fourth wall.
That seems to come from Leigh Hunt in 1807. He's actually criticizing an actor, saying his performance made the stage seem like his own room, of which the audience composed the fourth wall.
Huh. So it started as a critique. That's the first known use.
Generally considered to be, yes, using that specific term.
And then there was Irving later on.
Henry Irving, in 1879. He had his fourth wall theory. His idea was a bit different, though. He thought the audience should sort of mentally decorate that fourth wall.
Decorate it? How?
Imagine pictures on it, or imagine Hamlet painting on it. The point, for Irving, was to focus your mind on the language, the poetry, the inner world, not the stage mechanics.
Interesting. So keep the focus internal.
Exactly. Keep the focus on the essence of the drama.
Okay, so we have this concept, born in theater, formalized over centuries. But how does it actually play out across different kinds of storytelling? Let's dive into that, starting with theater itself.
Right, it's home turf. But it's crucial to remember, like we touched on, that for a lot of theater history, This strict fourth wall wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, you mentioned Shakespeare. Asides, soliloquies.
Exactly. Greek plays, too. Characters routinely address the audience directly. It wasn't seen as breaking anything. It was just part of how plays worked then.
It only became the standard, the sort of default with modern realism.
Pretty much. That's when the expectation of a sealed-off world really took hold.
But even then, some theater forms just love to smash it, right? Like pantomime.
Oh, absolutely. Panto thrives on audience interaction. He's behind you, that kind of thing.
At children's theater, too. I'm thinking Peter Pan.
The classic. If you believe in fairies, clap your hands.
Yeah.
Directly asking the audience to intervene in the plot. It makes you part of the magic.
Okay, let's shift to cinema. Were there early film examples?
Surprisingly early, yeah. There's a 1918 silent film, Men Who Have Made Love to Me. Mary McLean, the author, plays herself and actually stops the story to talk to the audience.
Wow, in 1918, that feels really modern.
It really does. Very meta for the time.
And then, of course, comedy just ran with it.
Oh, completely. Comedy filmmakers realized how powerful it could be. Oliver Hardy, for instance.
His look to the camera, that long, suffering stare.
Exactly. Seeking sympathy, making you his confidant. And Groucho Marx, constantly talking to the audience.
In Animal Crackers, telling people to go to the lobby.
Right. Or in Horse Feathers. It turns you, the viewer, into a co-conspirator in the joke. It acknowledges the shared silliness.
And later filmmakers just blew it wide open. Mel Brooks, Monty Python.
Zucker, Abrahams, and Zucker, too. Their films break it so often the wall barely exists. It's part of their whole comedic style.
Jerry Lewis even wrote about it, didn't he? Saying it was okay to look at the camera.
He did, in The Total Filmmaker.
Yeah.
He argued against the rule that actors should never look at the camera, said he'd have them do it at least once if a point is to be served.
And he did it in his own films.
Yep, like The Nutty Professor. And The End of the Patsy is famous for revealing the whole thing as a movie set, pulling back the curtain entirely. But it's not just comedy. Woody Allen used it brilliantly in Annie Hall.
Right, talking directly to us about his relationship problems.
Yeah, he said he felt the audience shared those feelings, and he wanted to connect directly, confront them almost. It creates this incredible intimacy.
And Purple Rose of Cairo takes it even further.
Where the character literally walks off the screen. The wall becomes a physical barrier to be crossed.
Any really striking dramatic examples?
Peter Finch, at the very, very end of Bloody Sunday from 1971, it's a sudden direct address that just hits you, completely changes how you feel about him.
It's still something filmmakers play with, and sometimes audiences don't like it. I remember the recent Persuasion film.
Right, the 2022 version. Dakota Johnson broke the fourth wall constantly, and a lot of critics and viewers found it maybe overused or distracting. Perhaps it didn't feel earned narratively.
But then you get something totally wild, like Coppola's Megalopolis.
Oh yeah, that's pushing boundaries. At some screenings, having a live actor walk on stage and interact with the film character in real time.
Who then answers back from the screen.
That's blurring lines between film, theater, reality. It's a really bold, meta-theatrical experiment with that wall.
Okay, what about television? Seems like it happens all the time there.
Especially in comedy, absolutely. Animation loves it. Bugs Bunny talking to us.
Or other Looney Tunes characters. They always seem to wear they were in a cartoon.
Totally. And Monty Python's Flying Circus did it constantly, sometimes pretending the animated bits had real actors playing them off screen. Just layers of meta humor.
George Barnes was doing it way back, right?
On the George Burns and Gracie Allen show in the 50s, he'd step aside and talk to the audience about the plot, about Gracie, a real pioneer of that direct address on TV.
And then you have things like The Office, the mockumentary style.
That's a brilliant use of it. Those talking head interviews, characters looking right at the camera, talking to an unseen documentarian.
But really, they're talking to us.
Exactly. It gives you access to their inner thoughts, their unfiltered reactions. It really amps up the cringe comedy, makes it feel more intimate, almost voyeuristic.
We also see narrators who break the fourth wall constantly, like in House of Cards.
Francis Urquhart in the original British version, definitely, giving those cynical asides straight to camera. Frank Underwood did it too in the US version, though maybe a bit differently.
And Lemony Snicket in A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Yes. He's constantly interrupting the story to talk to the viewer, explain wordplay, warn you to stop watching. He's like this gloomy educational guide breaking the wall.
Fleabag is probably the most famous recent example.
Oh, absolutely. Her constant glances, comments, explanations to the camera. It creates this incredibly intense personal connection. You feel like her secret confidant. It's central to the show's impact.
Lots of sitcoms used it too, just for quick gags or exposition. Saved by the Bell.
Zach Morris, freezing time to talk to us.
Yeah.
Fresh Prince, Clarissa explains it all. Malcolm in the Middle, they all used it. Sometimes to set up a story, sometimes just for a quick comment on the chaos.
It's pretty versatile.
Very. And sometimes it's used in a more challenging way, like in Showtime's Shameless.
Where the character talks to the viewers at the start.
Yeah, often criticizing or even kind of playfully threatening the audience, highlighting how messed up the plot is. Maybe it's a way to weed out certain viewers, or maybe it just adds to the show's edgy appeal, build a weird bond.
We even see it in anime, like Attack on Titan.
Yeah, in the final season, there's a moment where a character's hallucination of past events feels very meta, almost like they're becoming aware of the media itself. It signals a big shift.
Can it ever happen by accident?
Apparently. There's a story about a Doctor Who episode, The Caves of Androzani. An actor misunderstood a direction and looked at the camera while his character was thinking.
And they kept it.
The director decided it actually worked, made the moment more intense, drew you into his panic. So, a happy accident.
And we can't forget kids' shows. They break it all the time.
Constantly. Asking the audience for help, asking questions. Which way did he go? It makes kids feel involved.
Okay, this brings us to video games, which are interactive by nature. So do they just break the fourth wall constantly by default?
That's a really good question. And you could argue, yeah, pretty much all of them do, in a way.
How so?
Well, think about it. The game is always asking you, the player, to do things. Press this button, move that joystick. And all the interface elements, health bars, maps, tutorials, they're talking to you, the person holding the controller, not usually the character in the game.
Right, the character doesn't see their own health bar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the basic mechanics often breach that character-player divide.
And then games get really clever with it narratively too, right?
Oh, yeah. Characters might look right out of the screen at you. Or become self-aware, realizing they are in a game. Sometimes there's hidden stuff completely outside the story. It gets very metafictional.
Any specific examples that really stand out?
Doki Doki Literature Club is a wild one. A character, Monica, becomes self-aware and starts talking directly to you, the player.
How does that work?
To actually progress, you have to go into the game's files on your actual computer and delete her character file. It completely breaks the boundary.
Whoa, okay.
Or One Shot, where the game world is explicitly a program running on your computer and some characters know you're there.
That messes with your head.
Totally. And some games simulate glitches. Eternal Darkness was famous for this.
Okay.
It would fake things like your save file being deleted or even a blue screen of death appearing on your TV.
Wouldn't that just pull you out of the game?
You'd think so, but often it does the opposite. It makes you question if something's wrong with your console, your reality. It actually kind of deepens the immersion by blurring those lines in a scary way.
Okay, but there's another way to think about this in games, isn't there? Something about the magic circle.
Right. This is Stephen Conway's idea. He argues that a lot of what we call fourth wall breaking in games isn't really breaking it. It's more like relocating the wall.
Relocating it.
Or expanding the magic circle, the boundary of the fictional game world, to actually include you, the player, and your real-world space.
So instead of shattering the illusion,
it pulls your reality into the illusion. It makes you part of the game world, which can be even more immersive.
Can you give an example of that?
Think of games like Evidence, The Last Ritual. It would send you in-game emails to your actual email address, or direct you to real websites to find clues. Your computer becomes part of the game space.
Or games that use the hardware.
Exactly. Like that old X-Men game on the Genesis that made you physically reset the console at one point. Or Metal Gear Solid telling you to put the controller on your arm or neck to simulate something happening in-game.
That's clever. Pulling the physical world in.
Yeah. Other examples. Sonic tapping his foot impatiently if you leave him idle. A character in Super Paper Mario calling you the Great Being.
Max Payne realizing he's in a game.
And narrating the interface. The Flesh of Fallen Angels. Talking about health packs. Or the Stanley Parable, where the narrator talks only to you, the player, arguing with you, pleading with you to follow his instructions or even turn the game off.
Okay, so theater, film, TV, games.
No.
What about books? How does a book break a wall you can't even see?
Good question. In literature, the technique is usually called metalepsis.
Metalepsis.
Yeah, it means transgressing narrative levels. It often happens in what's called metafiction, where the story somehow acknowledges that it is a story, or a character realizes they're fictional.
Is this a new thing in books?
Not at all. You can find traces of it way back. Think of Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales or Cervantes in Don Quixote. Even Jane Austen did it in Northanger Abbey, where the narrator comments on novel writing itself.
Ah, okay, so it has deep roots.
Definitely. But it really became a big thing consciously in the 20th century with postmodernism. Writers like Virginia Woolf, Kurt Vonnegut.
Vonnegut in Breakfast of Champions, he puts himself in the book.
Exactly. They used to question everything, reality, authority, how stories get told, and who gets to tell them.
How is it different in a book compared to, say, a play? Because reading is so solitary.
That's the key difference. It's personal, not communal.
Hmm.
When a book breaks the fourth wall, it creates this unique awareness between the text and you, the individual reader. It can build trust, make you think about the act of reading itself.
And it doesn't always have to be a character saying, I'm fake, right? Yeah. It can be the narrator.
Right. The narrator might step outside the story to talk directly to you, offer commentary, admit they don't know everything. It reminds you that you're reading a constructed thing.
Any more recent examples?
Ada Palmer's Terra Ignota books are full of it. William Goldman's The Princess Bride is a classic example with all the footnotes and the author interrupting.
Oh, yeah, the good parts version.
Exactly. And there's even a novel called The Fourth Wall by Sorge Chalendon. It's about trying to stage the play Antigone in Beirut during the Civil War. So the act of putting on a play becomes this meta-commentary on reality.
Wow. So wrapping this all up, the fourth wall, breaking it, it's clearly not just some gimmick.
Not at all. It's a really powerful, incredibly versatile tool. Artists use it across all sorts of media to mess with our heads, basically, to play with our perception of what's real in the story.
And to deepen how we engage with it.
Definitely. It forces us to confront that suspension of disbelief we usually take for granted. Sometimes breaking the wall pulls you in deeper, makes it feel more immediate.
Like Fleabag.
Right. Other times it pushes you out, makes you aware of the whole construction, maybe makes you think more critically about what you're watching or reading.
It really makes you question the nature of stories themselves.
How they're built, how they work on us.
So here's something for you, the listener, to think about. Now that you're more aware of this fourth wall and how often it actually gets broken in things you watch, read, or play, how does that change things for you?
Yeah, does knowing about it make you more critical? Do you start looking for the seams in the storytelling?
Or maybe you just get more used to that blurry line, that fluid boundary between the story's reality and your own. Something to mull over.
Now our next deep dive. Imagine for a moment someone bearing this impossibly heavy burden on their shoulders. For most of us, that iconic image, it immediately brings to mind Atlas, perpetually holding up the entire world.
Yeah.
But what if I told you that common picture is actually, well, a pretty significant misconception?
Yeah.
This deep dive is about to uncover the fascinating, surprising truth behind one of Greek mythology's most enduring figures.
Exactly. That's our mission today. We're going to delve deep into the ancient sources. We want to understand who Atlas truly was, the actual burden he carried, his unique eternal punishment, his surprising encounters with some of the greatest heroes, and yeah, how his name came to define everything from maps to psychological traits. The goal is to gain knowledge quickly but thoroughly, revealing some genuine aha moments along the way for you.
So let's just jump right in and unpack that first big revelation then. The most famous image of Atlas shows him holding something absolutely immense. What exactly is it? Because it sounds like it's not what we all think.
You're absolutely right. That's the core misconception right there. Classical art, and importantly, the ancient sources themselves, they're incredibly clear about this. Atlas was condemned to hold up the heavens, the sky, or the celestial sphere for eternity, not the terrestrial globe or Earth.
Really? The sky?
Yes. If you look at something like the Farnese Atlas, which is the oldest surviving major sculpture of him, he's explicitly bearing celestial spheres, with constellations and all. The whole idea of him holding the Earth, that was actually a much later development. It got reinforced in the 16th century, really, as the term atlas started being used for collections of maps.
Wow. So the visual evidence has been there all along, kind of challenging the common image we have today. That's a massive distinction. Okay. So this wasn't just some random cosmic job for a strong guy, was it? There's a profound backstory to his punishment, I gather. What did he do to deserve such a monumental task?
Indeed. His burden was a direct and frankly severe consequence of the Titanomachy. That was the great epic war between the older generation of gods, the Titans, and the younger Olympians led by Zeus. Atlas sided squarely with the Titans in that conflict. He was a key general, actually.
Ah, so he picked the losing side.
He definitely did. When Zeus and the Olympians ultimately triumphed, many Titans were confined to the depths of Tartarus. But Atlas, he received a unique and, you could argue, worse condemnation. He was forced to stand at the very western edge of the earth and hold up the entire sky on his shoulders forever. This is why he was also known as Atlas Telamon, which literally means enduring Atlas.
Enduring Atlas, that fits. And for someone burdened with such an immense eternal task, you'd wonder, what was his life like before all this, before this cosmic weight fell upon him? Who was this Atlas, and what was his family tree like?
Well, Atlas was a highly prominent figure among the Titans even before the war. He was a son of the Titan Iapetus and either the Oceanid Asia, a sea nymph, or Clymene, another Oceanid. This also made him a brother to two other incredibly well-known Titans, Epimetheus and, of course, Prometheus.
Right, Prometheus, quite the family.
Definitely, and he certainly had a busy family life of his own. He fathered numerous children, mostly daughters. By Hesperus, a nymph associated with the evening, he fathered the Hesperides. They guarded the golden apples we'll get to. With Pleione or Aethra, both significant Oceanids, he had the Hyades, a son named Hyas, and the famous Pleiades, the star cluster. He's also cited as the father of the nymph Calypso.
Calypso from the Odyssey.
That's the one. And Dione, though their mothers are less specified in the myths. It's even worth noting that some ancient sources, like the mythographer Hyginus, mention an even older Atlas, a son of the primordial deities Aether, the upper air, and Gaia, the earth.
Huh. So layers upon layers, even in his origins. Okay, so he's holding the heavens, he's got this vast lineage. But he wasn't just a static figure under his immense burden, right? You mentioned he actually played crucial dynamic roles in the myths of two of the greatest Greek heroes.
Yeah.
Let's start with his encounter with Perseus. How did that go down?
Yeah, this is a fascinating, though perhaps slightly lesser-known interaction. The Greek poet Polyidus, writing way back around 398 BC, mentions Atlas simply as a shepherd who was turned to stone by Perseus, just sort of matter of fact. However, Ovid, in his Metamorphoses, gives us a much more detailed and dramatic account. Very vivid.
Oh, it usually does.
Right. He identifies Atlas not as a humble shepherd, but as a powerful king of Mauritania, ruling over vast lands in the far west. In Ovid's version, Perseus arrives in Atlas's kingdom seeking shelter, maybe boasting a bit, identifying himself as a son of Zeus. Atlas refuses him hospitality, flat out refuses, and the reason? He's driven by this deep fear of an ancient prophecy, a prophecy that warned him a son of Zeus would one day steal his prized golden apples.
Ugh, the golden apples again. And Perseus, who, let's remember, just defeated Medusa and is carrying her head. He probably wouldn't take kindly to that refusal, I imagine.
Not at all. He's enraged by the refusal, the lack of hospitality. So Perseus then whips out the horrifying head of Medusa and turns Atlas not just into stone, but into an entire mountain range. His head became the towering peak, his shoulders the long, formidable ridges, and his hair the dense, ancient forests.
Whoa, that's quite the transformation. Much more than just being petrified. But wait, you mentioned that prophecy about golden apples and a son of Zeus. Was that prophecy about Perseus stealing the golden apples? Did Perseus go after them then?
That's where Ovid skillfully, or perhaps, cleverly, weaves different mythic strands together. It's a neat trick. The prophecy about the golden apples and a son of Zeus, it actually related to Heracles, another even more famous son of Zeus, and quite notably Perseus' own great-grandson.
Ah, so Heracles. Now that brings us to the really famous tale. Heracles and the golden apples, a truly legendary story of cunning and strength that many people might know a piece of.
Indeed. Probably the most famous story involving Atlas, besides the punishment itself. One of Heracles' infamous 12 labors, assigned to him as a penance by King Eurystheus, was to fetch those very golden apples. They grew in Hera's sacred garden, tended by Atlas's own daughters, the Hesperides, and guarded, of course, by the fierce 100-headed dragon Ladon. Not an easy task.
Definitely not. So how did Heracles manage it? He couldn't just fight his way in, could he?
Well, he needed help. He knew Atlas couldn't abandon his post, holding up the heavens, so Heracles struck a deal, a very clever deal. He offered to temporarily hold up the entire sky for Atlas, while Atlas, unburdened for the first time in ages, went and retrieved the apples from his daughters. Easier for him, right?
Okay, I can see where this is going. And Atlas, being a shrewd Titan, finally seeing a chance at freedom, maybe, he immediately recognized an opportunity, didn't he?
Oh, he absolutely did. He must have felt the relief instantly. So, upon his return with the apples, Atlas tried to trick Heracles into carrying the sky permanently, a classic bait and switch. He offered to deliver the apples himself back to Eurystheus, reasoning that Heracles, having willingly taken the burden, was now stuck with it forever. See ya.
Oh, crafty Titan. But Heracles wasn't just about muscle, was he?
Not at all. He was renowned for his cunning as much as his strength. He saw right through the trick. He pretended to agree, said something like, "Sure, sounds good, but could you just take the sky back for a few minutes so I can rearrange my lion's-skin cloak, get some padding on my shoulders? It's really heavy."
Huh. And I can almost picture it. Atlas thinking he's won.
Exactly. The moment Atlas obligingly took the heavens back onto his own shoulders, Heracles swiftly seized the golden apples and just ran away, left Atlas standing there, burden back in place. It's an iconic moment of wits triumphing over, well, attempted deception and raw power.
A great story. But you mentioned alternatives.
Yeah, there are some less common versions of this myth. In some, Heracles, instead of tricking Atlas, actually built the two great pillars of Hercules, one in Europe, one in Africa, flanking the Strait of Gibraltar. The idea was these pillars would hold the sky away from the earth permanently, effectively liberating Atlas from his burden as a reward.
So maybe a happier ending for Atlas in some tellings. That's interesting. Okay.
Yes.
It's already surprising to learn he held the sky, not the earth, and about these hero encounters. But then you find out that Atlas wasn't just one mythological figure, the Titan we've been discussing. What if I told you that name pops up in some truly unexpected and significant places? This is where it gets really interesting.
Absolutely. The name Atlas surfaces in some surprisingly different yet equally influential contexts. It's not just the Titan. For example, according to the philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, the very first king of the mythical city of Atlantis was also named Atlas, though this Atlas was the son of Poseidon, the sea god, and the mortal woman Cleito.
The first king of Atlantis, that's huge.
It is, although other ancient accounts found in works by writers like Eusebius and Diodorus Siculus describe this Atlantean Atlas differently. They state his parents were the primordial deities Uranus, the sky, and Gaia, the earth, and he was actually raised by his sister Basilia. So even within the Atlantean lore itself, there's variation on who this Atlas was.
Fascinating. Any others?
Then there's the legendary king of Mauritania, whom we briefly touched upon with Perseus and Ovid's story. This figure became intrinsically associated with northwest Africa, specifically the towering Atlas Mountains there. This king was also linked to the Hesperides and the Gorgons, who were both said to live in the extreme west of the world near his kingdom. By the Roman Empire, the association of an Atlas, whether the Titan or this king living near Mauritania in those mountains, was really firmly entrenched in the popular imagination.
So the mountains might be named after the king or the Titan or both sort of merged?
It's a bit blurry exactly which Atlas they meant sometimes, but the connection to the region became undeniable. And just briefly, it's worth mentioning that in Etruscan mythology, the culture in ancient Italy before the Romans, we find a figure named Errol. He appears in art with Hercules, their version of Heracles, but his name, Errol, seems to be etymologically independent from the Greek Atlas. So the concept of a strong, often burdened figure at the edge of the world, it seems to resonate across different ancient cultures.
It's incredible how a single name can hold so much mythological weight, even spreading across different figures and cultures. So what does this all mean for the name Atlas itself? Where did it originally come from? Do we even know?
That's the million drachma question. The etymology is actually quite uncertain, a bit of a mystery in itself. The Roman poet Virgil, for instance, he suggested a connection to the Latin word duus, meaning hard or enduring, which kind of hints at the Greek word lenai, which also means to endure or to suffer. A very fitting description for the Titan, wouldn't you say?
Definitely fits the bill.
Another theory, given that the Atlas Mountains are in a region historically inhabited by Berber peoples, some scholars have suggested the name might come from the Berber word Adra, which simply means mountain. Plausible, right? However, other linguists, like Robert S.P. Beeks, who studied pre-Greek languages, they argue for a pre-Greek origin, something even older than Greek or Berber. Partly because the name has this ant ending, which is often found in such ancient non-Indo-European words whose origins are lost to time.
So no firm answer, but lots of intriguing possibilities tied to endurance or mountains.
Precisely. But regardless of its precise linguistic root, the name left a direct and profound geographic legacy. We still feel it today. The vast Atlantic Ocean is literally derived from Sea of Atlas, named after the Titan who stood at its western edge, holding up the sky. And even the name of the lost city Atlantis, so famously mentioned in Plato's Timaeus dialogue. It comes from Atlantis Nasos, which translates directly from Greek as Atlas's island, named after that first king, son of Poseidon.
Wow, an ocean and a legendary lost continent. That's quite a legacy. But, okay, beyond the ancient scrolls and mountains, Atlas's presence is surprisingly pervasive in our modern world too, isn't it? He truly left his mark on our culture in ways you might not even realize.
Absolutely. His most widely recognized cultural association today is undoubtedly in cartography, maps. Now, the print seller Antonio Lafreri first depicted Atlas on a map title page way back in 1572, just using the image. But it was the great cartographer Gerardus Mercator who, between 1585 and 1595, was the first to use Atlas as the actual title for a collection of maps.
Ah, so that's why we call them atlases.
That's exactly why. And Mercator explicitly said he was honoring Atlas, but specifically in his capacity as the learned king of Mauritania. He saw him not just as the strongman Titan, but as this wise king, a philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer who supposedly made the first celestial globe. So, thanks to Mercator linking that learned king to maps, we universally refer to collections of maps as atlases today.
Mind blown. Okay, what else?
Well, his influence extends even into psychology. Ever heard the term Atlas personality?
Can't say I have, no.
It's used metaphorically to describe someone whose childhood was characterized by excessive responsibilities, someone who had to metaphorically carry the weight of the world, or at least their family's world, on their shoulders from a very young age. A heavy emotional or practical burden.
That's poignant. It makes a lot of sense as a metaphor.
It does. And then there's literature. Ayn Rand's influential and controversial 1957 novel Atlas Shrugged. It directly references the popular misconception of Atlas holding the entire world, not the sky. She uses it as this powerful metaphor, comparing the capitalist and intellectual class in her philosophy to modern atlases. People who, in her view, metaphorically hold up the modern world through their innovation and effort, often at great personal expense or feeling unappreciated.
Right, using that image of the burden.
Exactly. And finally, artistically, Atlas's depictions also tell a compelling story across millennia. Michael J. Anderson, an art historian, explains that the earliest Greek art shows him with this really rigid, almost suffering stance. It symbolizes divine punishment and the immense effort of maintaining cosmic order. He's consistently seen as this hugely muscular figure, often bearing that celestial globe or vault, like the Farnese Atlas we mentioned.
So that image has been pretty consistent visually, even if the object shifted in popular thought.
Largely, yes. And you can find this powerful imagery everywhere, from ancient pieces to the Renaissance-era Nautilus cup, which has Atlas supporting the world, showing the shift, and even strikingly modern sculptures. Think of the famous one at Rockefeller Center in New York, but also others in Melbourne, Santiago de Compostela in Spain, Amsterdam, Tsarskoye Selo near St. Petersburg. There's even a unique Greco-Buddhist depiction of Atlas found in Gandhara, ancient Pakistan, showing his surprising cross-cultural resonance. He really got around.
It's fascinating how this image, this figure, has persisted and evolved, shaping our language, our art, how we see maps, even our understanding of ourselves, showing up in so many different forms across millennia. What a deep dive.
What a journey, right? Atlas is so much more than just, a strong man holding something heavy. He's a titan of cosmic punishment, yes, but also a figure of surprising cunning and deception in the myths, a skilled intellectual and astronomer in some traditions. And the unexpected namesake for our maps, an entire ocean, a legendary lost city, and even profound psychological traits.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Atlas's story isn't just about the physical burden of holding up the sky. It raises these really powerful questions about responsibility, doesn't it? And the true weight of expectations, the nature of knowledge itself, and just how enduring myths continue to shape our language and our understanding of the world centuries, millennia later.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Given all these different versions of Atlas the Titan, the king, the symbol, and his many burdens the sky, the world in later thought, maybe even knowledge, what unseen skies or worlds might you be holding up right now in your own life? And, maybe more provocatively, what could happen if you dared to put them down, even just for a moment? Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into a concept that, well, it underpins so much of the storytelling we consume, often without us even realizing the full extent of its impact. I'm talking about the shared universe. We all think we know what a shared universe is, but okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to really go beyond that surface definition. We want to uncover the surprising complexity, the rich historical evolution, and the incredibly varied forms these shared universes take across a multitude of media. Think of this as your in-depth guide, a shortcut, really, to truly appreciating this fascinating, constantly evolving concept.
And it really is more relevant now than ever, isn't it? I mean, just look around at the media landscape. So many major franchises are built on this very structure.
Right.
It's not just about superheroes, although, yeah, they certainly leap to mind. What's truly fascinating here is that it's become a fundamental and still evolving way stories are told and consumed. It offers those, moments about connections you might never have noticed before.
Absolutely. So to set the stage, at its heart, a shared universe is essentially a fictional world. Think of it like a collaborative sandbox, maybe,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
where multiple creators contribute. Each of their works, importantly, can stand alone, but they all fit into a bigger, jointly developed story, character arcs, or the overall world itself.
Mhm.
You see this most commonly in genres like science fiction, fantasy.
Right. But it's crucial, though, to clarify what a shared universe isn't, because it often gets confused with similar concepts we're all familiar with. For instance, it's not just a simple crossover.
Okay.
That's where, independent characters or stories meet for maybe a single event, perhaps for marketing or even a playful what-if scenario,
Yeah.
like seeing two different cartoon characters meet. Crossovers don't necessarily merge their backstories permanently. Now, crossover can definitely happen within a shared universe,
Sure.
but it doesn't define one.
Yeah.
And it's also not the same as collaborative writing.
Right, where everyone's working on the exact same book or script.
Exactly. That's multiple artists working together on the same specific work, not contributing separate works to the same world. There's also this more expansive term, an imaginary entertainment environment.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
It is. It's a kind of shared universe that's just so vast, it naturally expands across multiple types of media. Novels, films, video games. Each new piece builds on the same history, the same characters. It's a truly sprawling narrative ecosystem.
It's interesting how that term, or even just shared universe, has kind of bled into broader contexts, too. Beyond fictional worlds, you sometimes hear it used in a wider sort of non-literary sense, to convey a common understanding or framework for discussion, often as a shared universe of discourse.
Yeah, like everyone's operating with the same basic assumptions or language. Now, as you can probably imagine, when you have multiple creative minds contributing to a single sprawling narrative like this, well, maintaining consistency becomes incredibly difficult. Writers face inherent challenges in avoiding contradicting details, especially as these universes grow very large and run for a long time.
So how do they manage that?
This is where the concept of canon comes in. Canon is basically the version of the story or the set of facts deemed official by the author or, more often, the company controlling the setting.
Okay, the official storyline.
Exactly. But it's worth noting, not all shared universes actually have a single controlling entity. And even when they do, fans don't always agree with these official determinations.
Oh, definitely not.
Sometimes what emerges is something called fanon.
And not.
Yeah, it's like a degree of consensus within the setting's fandom, the fan community, when an official canon is lacking, or maybe even disputed, like fans might collectively agree on some detail that's never been officially stated.
That concept of canon sounds absolutely crucial for keeping these sprawling universes coherent. But what happens when, like you said, the fans have a completely different idea of what should be canon, especially in long-running series? Does that tension ever actually benefit the universe, or is it always a struggle?
It's usually a struggle, I'd say, or at least a tension over creative direction. And when those contradictions do inevitably pop up in the official material,
Which they always do.
right, writers have a tool to fix them, retconning. It's short for retroactive continuity.
Ah, the retcon.
Exactly. Think of it like hitting the undo button or maybe rewriting history slightly on a specific detail to fix inconsistencies and make everything fit together more seamlessly again. It's a powerful tool, but sometimes controversial.
I can imagine. I definitely remember times when readers weren't exactly thrilled when a story or maybe a whole series got sort of retroactively integrated into a larger shared universe. It could feel like, the publisher was suddenly making one hero's fans buy other heroes' comics just to keep up with the main story.
Exactly. And this really highlights the precise thinking required, especially for those meticulously crafted comic book universes. It's fascinating, actually. Comics historian Don Markstein, way back in 1970, laid out some incredibly specific criteria for defining a shared universe in an article in Kappa Alpha.
1970. Wow.
And what's truly fascinating about Markstein's rules isn't just how detailed they are, but how they show the fundamental challenges intellectual property, logistics that pop up when multiple creators build on one world. They're almost like a blueprint for managing creative chaos.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are these rules?
Okay, so first, transitivity. If character A has met character B and B has met C, then transitively A and C are in the same universe. Makes sense. Second, no real people connection. Characters cannot be connected just because they both interacted with real people. So the example he used was Superman met JFK, Kennedy met Neil Armstrong, Armstrong met the Fantastic Four. That doesn't mean Superman and the Fantastic Four are automatically in the same universe.
Right, that would connect almost everything.
Exactly. Third, no outside characters. Yeah. You can't connect characters using characters that didn't originate with the publisher. So, say Superman met Hercules, and the Fantastic Four also had Hercules. That doesn't connect them if Hercules is just a public domain figure or belongs to another company.
Got it. Keeps the universes distinct.
Fourth, and this is a fun one, specific fictionalized versions can connect. If you have a specific fictionalized version of a real person, his example was the Jerry Lewis from DC Comics' own comic book, who was distinct from the real Jerry Lewis because, get this, he had a magical housekeeper.
Seriously?
Seriously. That specific version can be used as a connection. And this also applies to specific versions of public domain fictional characters, like Marvel Comics' specific take on Hercules or DC's version of Robin Hood.
Okay, that's quite specific.
And finally, fifth, on-panel appearance. Characters are only considered to have met each other if they actually appeared together, on the page, on panel, in a story. Not to mention...
Wow, I never would have thought of those specific, almost like you said, legalistic rules for comics. It really highlights how complex managing these words became even way back then.
It really does.
So with these foundational ideas, these rules, these concepts like canon and retconning in mind, how have these interconnected worlds actually grown and evolved across the just vast landscape of media from those early roots to today's, ubiquitous blockbusters? Let's maybe start with print publications, specifically novels. It's fascinating how the expansion of existing material into a shared universe isn't just restricted to, say, licensed settings that might have started in movies or TV.
That's absolutely right. A great example is Larry Niven's Known Space setting. He actually opened it up to other writers for a series like the Mansin Wars.
Why did he do that?
Well, he felt his own lack of military experience meant he couldn't adequately describe these huge interstellar wars between humans and these tiger-like aliens, the Dinti. It wasn't always smooth sailing, though. There was apparently some controversy when one writer created an erotic story set in known space.
Oh.
Yeah, which led Niven to clarify later that his setting should really only be used under restricted circumstances and with permission. So control is still a factor.
Which contrasts quite a bit with someone like author Eric Flint. He took a much more direct, hands-on approach, didn't he? Editing and publishing collaborations with fan fiction writers himself to expand his 1632 series.
Exactly, a very different philosophy about creative control and collaboration in these open-ended universes. You also see posthumous expansions, settings being developed after the original creator's death.
Right.
A famous, maybe slightly controversial example is August Derleth's development of the Cthulhu mythos from H.P. Lovecraft's writings. Some purists consider Derleth's take completely dissimilar to Lovecraft's own cosmic horror.
I can see that.
But then you have less controversial examples, like Ruth Plumley Thompson and other authors continuing L. Frank Baum's beloved Oz stories after his death. Or authors like Greg Bear, Gregory Benford, and David Brin further developing Isaac Asimov's expansive Foundation universe with the permission of his estate, of course.
And a lot of other published works in this vein take the form of short story anthologies, right, with occasional standalone novels, where different authors contribute stories to a single shared world.
Precisely. Think of classics like Robert Len Asprin's Thieves' World, or C.J. Cherry's Merovingian Nights, or Janet Morris's Heroes in Hell. They built these really vibrant worlds through multiple voices.
Okay, so from novels, let's jump to comics, where this idea really seems to have exploded.
Oh, absolutely. In comics, shared universe basically reflects the overall milieu, the setting created by the publisher. It's expected that characters and events from one comics line will frequently appear in others.
Yeah.
By 1961, you had Marvel Comics writer and editor Stan Lee working with amazing artists like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, consciously merging the bulk of their existing characters into what we now know as the Marvel Universe.
The birth of the Marvel Universe?
Pretty much. And now, of course, Marvel sets stories in an ever-increasing number of alternate realities, all within a larger multiverse.
And what's really interesting is that DC Comics and Marvel, the two big competitors, have actually periodically co-published series where their characters meet.
Yeah, those intercompany crossovers.
But they've typically been written as, like, self-limiting events, right? To avoid suggesting the DC and Marvel universes permanently coexist.
Usually, yes. They keep the boundaries clear.
But here's an intriguing fact, a notable exception. Remember Amalgam Comics back in 1996?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Right. 24 comics released under this sort of metafictional imprint. It depicted a true shared universe populated by literal hybridizations of the two companies' characters, like Darkclaw Batman and Wolverine merged, or Super Soldier, Superman, and Captain America.
That was such a fun, bizarre experiment.
Totally. It was playing with the idea of shared universes. And Marvel has since actually labeled that whole amalgam reality Earth 692 as part of its own multiverse.
Huh. Of course they did. And, other companies have tried similar publisher-wide shared universes too. Valiant Comics had one called Unity, and CrossGen launched what they called the Siggleverse.
Right. Okay, so moving from the page to the screen, let's explore how these interconnected worlds manifest in films and television. These mostly seem to consist of, like, an umbrella of multiple film or TV franchises, all set within the same continuity. Each franchise tells its own standalone story, usually focusing on different characters, maybe different casts, directors, writers, but they all remain part of one coherent, non-contradictory shared continuity. Hopefully.
Hopefully is the key word sometimes.
We often hear the terms cinematic universes, for those mainly in films, and television universes for TV. If it's big in both, it's usually just called a cinematic universe. And these can also be accompanied by, video games, print works, telling additional canonical stories.
Yeah, and to understand how this evolved on screen, we can look at this concept called transfictional storytelling. Richard Sangellet described it as when two or more texts exhibit a transfictional relationship, meaning they share elements like characters, imaginary places, fictional worlds.
Okay.
And here's a significant aha moment for you. William Proctor's research suggests that Universal's horror film series, way back in the early to mid-1940s, actually started experimenting with this transfictional storytelling.
The classic monsters. Frankenstein, Dracula.
Exactly. Now, Proctor notes these early experiments weren't always conducted as, let's say, carefully or thoroughly as modern audiences might expect.
Right, continuity wasn't maybe the top concern.
Probably not. But the release of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in 1942, often considered the first real film crossover, along with later ensemble films like House of Frankenstein in 44 and House of Dracula in 45. These actually established the first cinematic universe.
Wow, universal horror. That's fascinating how early those experiments were. Do you think audiences back then were as tuned into continuity as we are today, or was it more just the fun of seeing them together?
I suspect it was likely more casual, yeah. Just the sheer novelty of seeing these iconic monsters share the screen was probably the main draw. But the seeds were sown.
Definitely. We also see film universes that originated as adaptations of novels, like the James Bond film series.
Oh yeah, a classic example.
While elements from Ian Fleming's novels are definitely adapted, the films aren't really direct adaptations, are they? Nor were they even adapted in the same order as the books.
Not at all.
Yet, despite spanning over, 50, 60 years now, and multiple actors playing Bond and other recurring characters like M or Q, all these films are generally accepted as being set within a single, coherent, fictional continuity. More or less.
More or less, yeah. There are debates, but the intention is there.
Or think about the Planet of the Apes film series. Also started as a novel adaptation, but took huge creative liberties. The original 1968 film led to all those sequels that introduced time travel, shifted focus between apes and humans. There was even a TV series and an animated series that are sometimes considered part of that original story.
So it got pretty complex.
And then much later, you get a prequel reboot film series that actually explains the origins within that original timeline. Kind of a massive retcon, really.
A very successful one, too. And then, of course, you absolutely have to talk about Star Wars.
Can't avoid it.
Created by George Lucas. Started with the original trilogy, 77 to 83. then expanded massively with the prequel trilogy from '99 to 2005, and the lore was broadened even further through animation like Star Wars, The Clone Wars.
Yeah. Which Lucas was heavily involved.
Deeply creatively involved, yeah.
Yeah.
Until 2014, which was a big turning point. That's when Lucasfilm announced that only those films in Clone Wars, plus everything fictional released after April 2014, would be considered official canon going forward.
Or the big canon reset.
Exactly. The animated series Star Wars Rebels was the first new thing under that rule, followed by the sequel trilogy starting in 2015. And Star Wars is just a prime example of that imaginary entertainment environment we talked about earlier.
Because it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Video games, comics, novels, short stories, RPG adventures, all originally intended to share the same continuity. Lucasfilm's early teams, like the Lucasfilm Story Group, were specifically tasked with coordinating cohesive storytelling, ensuring consistency and synergy across all these platforms.
And what about all that older stuff, the expanded universe?
That's now branded as Star Wars Legends. Reprints of the EU works produced before that April 2014 cutoff. It's worth noting, though, Lucas himself had often praised and even incorporated elements from those Legends expansions into his own work back in the day.
Right. Okay, switching gears slightly but staying with big franchises. Comic book-based film universes. Obviously huge now.
Dominant, you could say.
You've got the X-Men film series starting way back in 2000. That makes it the longest-running superhero film franchise in basically the same continuity, though it's had its share of reboots and timeline shifts. Yeah. Then the Behemoth, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU. Just the most films, multiple TV shows, tie-in comics. It exists in shared and parallel continuities as part of a multiverse now. Definitely an imaginary entertainment environment.
No question.
And then there was the DC Extended Universe, the DCEU, which had a rockier path and was recently officially replaced by the new DC Universe, the DCU, starting in 2024 under new leadership.
A fresh start for them. And interestingly, shifting genres again. In horror, the Conjuring franchise.
Oh yeah, the Warrens.
That universe, with all its spin-offs like Annabelle and the Nun, has actually been described by major outlets like Forbes and The Hollywood Reporter as the first successful cinematic universe after Marvel's. And as of a couple of years ago, the second most commercially successful overall.
Wow, really? More than DC or others?
Apparently so. In terms of consistent box office relative to budget, it's quite a surprising achievement for horror.
Definitely. And beyond the big studios, you have filmmakers creating their own smaller-scale universes, like writer-director Kevin Smith's View Askewniverse.
Clerks, Mallrats.
Exactly. A fictional universe used across several of his films, comics, even a TV series, all named for his production company. Characters like Jay and Silent Bob, played by Smith himself, pop up in almost all of them. And it all started with his debut film, Clerks, back in 1994.
A very distinct, very Smithian universe. And for a surprisingly fun, almost theoretical idea, did you hear about the proposed Simon and Garfunkel cinematic universe?
Wait, what? Simon and Garfunkel?
Yeah. Back in 2017, some movie creators publicly discussed this idea. Films would be titled after their songs. It kind of started jokingly with Edgar Wright's Baby Driver and Mark Webb's The Only Living Boy in New York. Wright even suggested making so long Frank Lloyd Wright.
That's amazing.
And other big names got interested. Rian Johnson apparently wanted to do Keep the Customer Satisfied. Lin-Manuel Miranda suggested Cecilia. Mark Webb and even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson expressed interest in I'm a Rock.
That's brilliant. So the premise is Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel were just method actors their entire careers living out these film plots. I love it.
It's a fun thought experiment, if nothing else.
Totally. Okay, moving specifically to television for a moment. A really straightforward example is just when a TV series leads to spin-off series set in the same universe, right? Often focusing on maybe a single character from the original show, like the classic American sitcom Cheers leading to Frasier, focusing on Frasier Crane, and also the Tortellis, focusing on Nick Tortelli's family.
Yeah, very common structure. But then there's the wilder side of TV connections. The Tommy Westphall universe hypothesis.
Ah, yes, the rabbit hole.
It really is. It's this fascinating, almost sprawling fan theory suggesting hundreds of American television series all take place in the same universe.
How does it work?
It builds on the basic idea that if an actor playing a character from Series A guest stars in Series B as that same character, then both Series A and Series B must exist in the same fictional universe.
Okay, makes sense. Lots of crossovers.
Lots. But here's where it gets really mind-bending. The theory takes its name from Tommy Westphall, a character in the final episode of the medical drama St. Elsewhere.
I remember St. Elsewhere. Great show.
It was. And the common interpretation of that very ambiguous final scene is that the entire universe of St. Elsewhere, and therefore, by extension, all the series connected to it through character crossovers, exists only within the imagination of Tommy Westphall, who is revealed to be autistic.
So potentially hundreds of shows are just in a snow globe.
Basically, yes.
Huh.
It's a mind blower.
And if you're a fan of British sci-fi, Doctor Who, you'll know its vast spin-off media, audio plays, novels, comics affectionately called the Whoniverse. Well, it has relatively little consistency, really.
Yeah, that's true. It's produced by so many different entities over the years, the continuity is notoriously fluid.
Part of its charm, maybe?
Perhaps. More structured examples on TV would be networks like the CW, which deliberately built shared universes.
Yeah.
You had the Arrowverse, based on DC Comics characters, Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, etc.
Right, the yearly crossovers were huge events.
Exactly. And also the Vampire Diaries universe, which comprised the original show, the originals, and legacies, all interconnected.
And the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, obviously didn't stop at films. It expanded into multiple interconnected television universes, too. First through shows produced by the separate Marvel television division on networks like ABC or Netflix.
Agents of SHIELD, Daredevil.
Right. And then, after Marvel Television got folded into Marvel Studios in late 2019, through the big-budget streaming shows developed directly for Disney Plus Store, starting with WandaVision in 2021. Much tighter integration there.
Definitely. And here's maybe the most surprising twist on the universe concept. It's even being applied to reality television.
Reality TV. How does that work?
Well, despite documenting real-life individuals, these shows involve significant producer guidance, right? Storylines are crafted.
Yeah.
And specifically, the TLC reality series 90 Day Fiancé has spawned a huge number of spin-offs. So many that its parent company, Warner Bros., Discovery, and others, openly refer to it as a universe.
Seriously, the 90 Day Fiancé universe?
Yep. It highlights how the concept of a universe is evolving beyond traditional fiction. It's being strategically applied to different kinds of media, like reality TV, maybe to capitalize on audience loyalty, extend the brand.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of blurs the lines between curated storytelling and real-life narratives.
That's wild.
Get this. In a 2022 investor presentation, Warner Bros. Discovery executives actually referenced the 90 Day Fiancé universe as being a core franchise for the company, putting it on par with Game of Thrones and the DC Comics superheroes.
Wow. Okay. That really shows how far the concept has stretched. It does challenge our traditional understanding of what a universe even is.
It certainly does.
Let's also consider animation. How do shared universes appear in animated movies and series? A huge one is the Mickey Mouse universe, isn't it?
Oh, massive. And it dates all the way back to the 1930s when the original animated cartoons were expanded into a newspaper comic strip.
Right.
And to address the inevitable discrepancies, times when Mickey is a steamboat captain in one cartoon and maybe a sorcerer's apprentice in another, or characters have different names or roles.
Yeah, how do they explain that?
The writers developed this clever idea. They think of the characters as being employed by Disney as actors.
Huh. Like they're just playing roles.
Exactly. Walt Disney himself, apparently, when asked if Mickey and Minnie Mouse were married, replied that yes, they were indeed married in their private life, but sometimes they appeared as just boyfriend and girlfriend for screen purposes.
So they're essentially saying Mickey and Minnie were method actors? That's hilarious.
Pretty much. And the Mickey Mouse universe is so big, it also includes the entire Donald Duck universe as, like, a subset within it.
Okay. And then there's that popular fan theory, the Pixar universe. The idea that all the Pixar animated movies from Toy Story to up to Inside Out actually take place in the same shared universe following some complex timeline.
Ah, yes. The Pixar theory. It's incredibly elaborate and fun to read about.
But is it true?
Well, here's the official debunking, straight from the source. At the 2015 D23 Expo, Disney's big fan convention, during a panel called Pixar Secrets Revealed, director Mark Andrews flat out rejected the theory. Yeah. And Ronnie Del Carmen, the co-director of Inside Out, reportedly added, "Do you know what kinds of meetings we'd have to make sure all our movies line up?"
Fair point. Okay, one more animation example. The DC animated universe, the DCAU.
Right, the Timbers are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A proper television universe that encompass those classic animated series like Batman, the animated series Superman, the animated series Justice League. But it also included associated feature films, short films, comic books, and video games, all mostly consistent.
A very well-regarded and coherent animated universe.
Okay, how about video games and the internet? Shared timelines definitely originate there, too.
Mm-hmm.
The influence of the internet on collaborative and interactive fiction, especially early on, led to a whole bunch of amateur shared universe settings. You had amateur authors contributing stories to mailing lists, story archives, Usenet news groups.
Yeah, things like SF Story and its spin-off Superguy are often cited as examples of the internet's early potential for this kind of collaborative world building, along with some more niche furry-themed examples like Tales from the Blind Pig or the Dargon Project.
Right.
Video games often present their own unique challenges for continuity, though. Look at the Command and Conquer real-time strategy games.
Oh, yeah, CC.
The original series, starting in '95, and the spin-off Red Alert series, starting in '96, were initially sort of set in the same universe. They were connected by the recurring villain Kane, who had a cameo in the first Red Alert.
Okay.
But Red Alert is set in this alternate timeline where Hitler was removed from power early, leading to an Allied Soviet World War instead of World War II. And then Red Alert 2 completely ignored the ending of the first game's Allied campaign, which was supposed to lead into the original Command & Conquer's Tiberium timeline.
So they just changed it.
Pretty much. Later games in the Red Alert series further diverged. It really illustrates the tension between maintaining strict continuity and allowing creative freedom for new game installments, especially in interactive media where gameplay often comes first.
Makes sense. Okay, beyond the big screens, comics, games, shared universes are popping up in some other unexpected places too.
They really are versatile.
Like the 2000 stage musical Seussical. That presented several famous Dr. Seuss books and characters, Horton, the Cat in the Hat, the Who's, as all taking place in the same interconnected fictional world.
Right. A Seussiverse on stage. And think about toys. Hasbro toy products, particularly G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Two huge ones.
Their manufacturer, Hasbro, considers them to exist fictionally within a single Hasbro universe. This has led to related shared universes in other media, like the Hasbro comic book universe published by IDW, and more recently, the Energon universe launched by Skybound Entertainment, which also ties into G.I. Joe and Transformers.
So the toys themselves have lore connecting them.
Increasingly, yes.
Yeah.
It adds value and encourages crossover collecting.
And for a final, maybe really contemporary and intriguing example, the music industry.
Go on.
All kinds of works by the American singer-songwriter Taylor Swift. Her songs, albums, music videos, films she's directed, tours, promotional stuff, even the narratives surrounding her career have been collectively referred to by quite a few journalists and media outlets as a musical or cinematic universe.
The Taylor Swift universe.
Yeah. Suggesting interconnected themes, recurring characters or motifs, hidden messages, creating this whole immersive world for her fans to decode and explore across all her output.
That's a fascinating application of the term. Shows how much it's become part of our cultural vocabulary.
It really does. So after covering all that ground, what does this all mean? From those minute, almost legalistic rules trying to define comic book continuity decades ago, to these global media phenomena spanning films, TV, games, and beyond, and even surprising inclusions like reality TV and pop music, shared universes are truly expansive, and wow, they're still evolving, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're clearly a powerful storytelling device. They create these immersive, interconnected worlds that can invite deeper engagement and potentially a much richer experience for you, the listener, the audience. They showcase immense creativity, obviously. But they also pose significant challenges, as we've seen. Challenges in terms of creative control, maintaining consistency, managing fan expectations. It really demonstrates that constant push and pull between needing a unified vision for the world and allowing for individual creative freedom within it.
So here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over. As you consume your favorite stories, whether they're films, books, games, maybe even music, take a second to consider, are you just watching or reading a single story? Or are you actually stepping into a meticulously crafted or perhaps even spontaneously formed shared universe? One that might be far more interconnected with a richer hidden history than you ever imagined. What kind of shared universes will we see next, and how will they continue to challenge our very understanding of storytelling itself?